Howdy there, folks. Palantir stock absolutely skyrocketed yesterday. It was a 20%-ish move yesterday. It's up another 4.5% or so today. Want to dive in on the reaction channel here today to the question and answer section of yesterday's conference call for Palantir. And the reason being is I don't think a lot of people either listened to it or maybe they didn't listen to it well enough. But monumental different things happened on that conference call that I thought was extremely important. So if you really want to know why Palantir stock was up 20%ish yesterday and another 4.5% today, is really based upon what happened specifically in this question and answer section in several different parts of it. And so I thought we'd react to that and share this with you guys and kind of share my opinions on this, because this is massive, and I don't think enough people are paying attention to what actually transpired on that Q&A section. So appreciate y'all joining me as always. Thanks so much for being here. Thank you for being subscribed. New all-time high subscribers in the history of the channel. I appreciate each and every one of you. And I also just made my moves in the Patreon portfolio. If you want to see exactly what stocks I'm buying and selling, exactly how I'm building out my portfolio in there, then check out the pinned comment down there. You can join us in there. And we also have a tier that has my Become Master of the Stock Market course, my #1 course ever, that's attached to it as well. Okay, that will be pinned comment down there. Alrighty, guys, let's get into this.
Welcome. I don't think the camera's working. Welcome to our earnings. Obviously, current events and the performance of our business are an absolute validation of our strategy of building the world's most aligned and powerful enterprise products years, sometimes decades before they're needed. Before you could imagine their power. AIP in U.S. commercial not only is disrupting the market, it's setting a standard that I don't believe any other software company will be able to reach, partly because they've misunderstood the value of LLMs and their relative importance and lack of importance, partly because they don't have decades of experience on the front line as we do in the military with managing the core ways in which you make these things precise, the way in which you provide governance. Also because the playbook backed by venture capitalists and supported by analysts has always been make the thinnest technology possible that is misaligned with your enterprise and hire the most and best salespeople so the enterprise gets moderate value while having its high revenue exported in a parasitic manner
So that part right there is important in itself, right? First off, Alex Karp can come across as sometimes cocky in this question and answer section, okay? First thing is, this isn't the first time Alex Karp's come across as potentially cocky, okay? This happens, and usually I like to see Karp a little cocky because that means likely good numbers are ahead. He's feeling pretty darn confident, right? But basically what he's calling out there is, in the software space especially, right, a lot of people view it as like, it's all about sales. So build, don't spend a fortune on building the product. Just make sure your sales team's good enough and they can go out there and sell it, right? And Karp's, and obviously what they've done at Palantir all the time, like their weakness has always been sales, if anything. Now they've had a fundamental change in their sales model, which is one of several key things that are about to happen on this question and answer section here. But that's always been their weakness, never been the product. You speak to anybody that's used Palantir's product, they have nothing but like incredible things to say about it. And it's the most comprehensive product they've ever dealt with and wherever they're dealing with it at. So that's never been the problem with Palantir. It's always been the sales side. And that's different than maybe a lot of SaaS type companies would be viewed in terms of like, maybe the product is not that great, but it's good enough, but your sales team's really good and you get that recurring revenue, right?
To the cheers of insiders and the pain of retail investors. And we obviously rejected that. And then on the mission side, we have been saying and building products for a world that is violent, disjointed, irrational, a world in which you have to show strength, a world in which if you do not show strength, people who are biased, xenophobic, dare I say anti-Semitic, will rear their head. A world in which you...
Yeah, and Karp's been calling this out for a couple of years now at this point in time, right? And it's looking more and more like what's transpired, obviously, Russia, Ukraine, now what's going on in the Middle East. I mean, gosh, you put some of these pieces together and it's like, oh, Karp maybe knows a little something in terms of kind of the way the world is and the way the world's going here. It seems like he's definitely called a lot of this that's happened recently.
We have to pick sides. Palantir is the first major company to, in my view, to have said from the beginning a thing that is obviously true. There is no such thing anymore of being on all sides. Palantir only supplies its products to Western allies. We've never supplied our products to enemies. We proudly support the U.S. government. I am proud that we are supporting Israel in every way we can. And we also support plain English speaking. So when people are massacred to the equivalent of almost 50,000 people in Israel, we view it as a terror act. We call it terrorism. We supply our product to people who are fighting terrorism. And we have no problem with describing as it is or sticking up for our allies. And, and we don't provide false context. All of a sudden.
So let's talk about the elephant in the room in regards to this section. Okay, we got to speak about it, right? Obviously, no one likes to see violence. Right, or death, or those sorts of things, or obviously what's going on. But with that being said, unfortunately, sometimes violence in this world is something that has to happen, and it's like, if you got a bully, at school pushing you around, you don't want to have to hit him in the face, but eventually you got to fight back and you got to hit him in the face, right? And so that's the world we live in. Some people don't feel comfortable with that world, but it is the world. And it will continue to be the world. It's always been the world. There always will be conflicts. There always will be bloodshed, and there always will be death. And it's unfortunate, and I wish it wasn't that way. I wish it was all peace and everything was all good, but it's not that way. And so you have to accept that. You have to get over that. And I definitely know in this time period, I've definitely seen it recently where a lot of people can't get over that fact of the world. But you just have to accept it. It is what it is. Not a lot of people know, but every day in the United States of America, massive amounts of people are killed. You know how many people are killed in Chicago from gun violence every freaking weekend? But no one really pays attention to that or cares about that. They turn a blind eye. They say, oh, those are just gangsters. Or whatever. Like, they'll make up whatever they want to make up in their own head to justify the bloodshed. But if you're going to look the other way in regards to that, then, you're not going to look the other way in regards to this, right? So just understand it's the way of the world. And you got to feel comfortable with that. You have to accept it for what it is, because you're not going to change that. I can guarantee you that.
A lot of context for describing what it means to kill Jews or persecute Jews across the world. I believe in context, and where in places where you need to actually provide it. But at Palantir, we have seen that our view of the world, which is that there really are people that are violent and not in conformity with morality, need to be fought. And we are supplying these products that we've built over the last 20 years to our allies, and we are proud of the results. And I would say also, even commercially, you are going to see that our alignment with our client, our alignment with our society pays major dividends. And for those of you who are along for the ride, we really celebrate you. And we are going to bring our warrior culture to our products, to our market fit, and the results of which we are going to bring to our allies.
With that, we'll begin with a few questions from our shareholders before we open up the call. Our first question is from Christopher. The current situation in Israel has opened the eyes of other allied countries around the globe. Specifically, are there current or future plans of supporting our allied partners in Asia with Palantir products?
Absolutely. The short answer is yes. I think not only can we look at Israel, but we can look even before that at Ukraine and the lessons that we've learned there. And I would distill that down simply to that you must pre-position data, software, and hardware well ahead of the fight there, and create a partner mesh network of command and control nodes to really provide a difference here. So that's one major.
So that's very important.
So we're spending a lot of our time.
What this gentleman's talking about here, right, is I think a very important subject. And if you think about Palantir's government side of their business model, right, because there's really two components of Palantir's business model. You got the government side, right, which can be helping out different government agencies, everything from the healthcare space to the military space and everything in between, right. No, what's important about this is basically what this gentleman's bringing out as a point here is it's good to have Palantir installed, ready to rock and roll before you ever have to deal with different dilemmas and problems and invasions and attacks and things like that. If you have Palantir installed before, it's going to likely help you out immensely. You might even know before time what might transpire in the future that hasn't even transpired yet, based upon several different data points. And so, I think government's going to look at this more and more and say, it might make sense to have this Palantir company be in with us and be ready to rock and roll before we have the problem, rather than after the fact, after certain things have already transpired, after certain attacks have already happened. Now let's go ahead and bring Palantir in. Well, that's cool, but maybe you could have prevented that attack. Maybe you could have been in a better position.
Energy, thinking about how do we get as much mass west of the international date line as possible to be prepared to meet those moments. And make no mistake, there's a lot to be done there. The other lesson specific from Israel is how much faster you can move when you create a big tent tech ecosystem that allows you to bring a lot of other defense tech startups along with you. The capabilities that we were able to give the Israeli government by bringing in other Israeli startups as well as international startups was incredible. And that's a key lesson that we're taking forward with us as well. And it's embodied and enabled by Palantir Government Web Services.
Thanks, Sham. Our next question is from Sony. Congrats on well-executed AI boot camps delivering tangible value very quickly. Could you kindly attempt to synthesize the top 3 observations from those boot camps for enterprises to launch AI-enabled decision management systems to power forward their critical objectives?
Sure, I'll take a first stab at this. I would say, one, it's about the magic moments. So the first bit of this that I think people get out of it is, what does it viscerally mean to understand that you can't really use these LLMs without tools? So how do you bring that tool bench forward? 2, it's a realization that the semantics of your business ought to be the prompt. And we are uniquely positioned there because the best way to do that is to serialize those semantics into your ontology, to use the object model that we have to do that. And so
we've already built and deployed. One of the most interesting things about the commercial market is there are all these tools we built that basically not only allow you to manage LLMs, but they basically pen test your enterprise. So is de facto what in the past where you were selling was misaligned with your enterprise. AI forces an alignment with your enterprise, and so you begin to ask really business relevant questions. And then because of essentially our ability to take the knowledge of your business and put it into the LLM and then extract from the LLM something relevant and then manage it, you get both the power of the LLM and you get the shock moment of the enterprise actually saying, wait a minute, you're providing me something that actually is good for my enterprise. Quite frankly, it's almost like taking an alcoholic off alcohol and saying, here's your health drink. And it's like, and the reason why it just is very, very hard to compete against that is because
as my bro over here drinks a beer. No, I'm just kidding. Looks like apple juice. Maybe it's a Red Bull. I don't know. I don't know what the heck that is, man. What is that he's drinking?
The other players in this space are actually built to take you away from what is good for your enterprise. How do you make better margins? How do you make your products more safer? How do you take the tacit knowledge of a Japanese manufacturing company and build in America with all the advantages of America and the tacit knowledge of Japanese manufacturing?
Okay, so this was an important part. Karp brought up several different times in different ways, either just even in the kind of like the press release a little bit, but also in the Q&A portion about factories inside the United States of America. Now, something interesting going on right now inside the United States of America that is going to be playing out over the next half decade to decade, and this matters significantly, is there's a lot of, obviously, not just warehouses being built, but actual like factories, actual production facilities, right? We have several huge ones going up in Arizona, for instance, right now, where I have a home, and that's my hometown, right? In Arizona, I mean, my gosh, we have the TSMC facility, which is, let's call it that's going to be the most highly rated chip facility, certainly in the United States, if not the world, right? Intel's building several big facilities over there. We continue to have more and more, we can call it reshoring into the United States of America. And so it definitely seems like Palantir is going to be a major player there. And, Karp talks about how he really views what Palantir can provide for United States companies in terms of reshoring in these facilities, making them as good as they are in Asia. right? Which has always been kind of creme de la creme in terms of these facilities. So I thought that was really important as well, because this is a longer term trend that's playing out, and it seems like Palantir is definitely going to be a player in terms of that market.
We're actually dealing with these things. And then there's all these things we've built that would take decades, years and years and years to build, even if you understood them, that we'd already built.
And to add on to that, about the Japanese example shows it. I think the third major magic moment that's impactful there is this incorporation of real-time expert feedback and thinking about feedback as a data type unto itself, not having to retrain or upgrade the parametric knowledge of the model, but actually being able to use feedback dynamically live to create an adaptive model.
And then, and I'm sure Ryan will talk about this, the scale function of this. It's like one of the logical questions is if you're doing well, why are you so happy that you have $40 million in operating income? Well, it's because the unit economics are so good moving from boot camp.
Oh, wait, hold on. So that just made me think like real-time data. So you know what I was thinking about? What just crossed my mind while he was talking about real-time data? It was reminding me of the days I was a manager at Quick Trip, right? Which was like the end of 2010 through 2014. And, there was all these different tasks. And we used to have these like models based upon data over time about how many hot dogs were supposed to be put on the grills and how many, we sold a lot of like hot dogs and taquitos and all these different things on grills. Like Quick Trip usually was like number one at selling food related stuff from like convenience store perspective, right? And so it would say like, put on 40 hot dogs based upon this is what you usually sell from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday afternoon or whatever, right? And so, the clerks would, look at this and say, put 10 steak taquitos on and 5 egg rolls and all these different things. And sometimes those were pretty accurate because it had kind of, it had taken the data over, many weeks, many months, right? And kind of filtered through all that data and said, this is about how many we're supposed to have on, right? But a lot of times it was off because there's so many different other elements that come in. Like, well, what if you're a lot busier than you usually are because there's a baseball game down the street, right? What if you're a lot less busy because it's raining out today, right? And so the clerk goes and puts 40 hot dogs on, but it's pouring rain out and not as many people are going to come into the store. That's just how it always was. Like if it was raining, like especially in Arizona, like people didn't go out. It was wild. And so all of a sudden, next thing you know, you got way too many hot dogs on the grill and you got food costs that's being wasted, right? And all of a sudden, you just wasted $5, $10 worth of product, let's say, that ends up having to be thrown away because it was on there too long. And all that adds up. And now imagine that over 1,000 stores, right? So when we talk about this stuff, folks, and you start to think about it, if you work for a business, especially if you worked anything in management, you can start to figure out like, oh my gosh, like if we could get real-time data that's much more intelligent in terms of making business decisions, the dollar amount that adds up over the course of a year, especially as a large enterprise, even a mid-sized business, but especially a large enterprise, is monumental, folks. I mean, monumental. I mean, we're talking about it could be the differences between, making very large profits as a company or taking losses as a company or making very minimal profits as a company. And so when you think about Palantir's cost, and let's say Palantir's cost to a business is $10 million or $30 million, right? All that matters is you get more than that $10 million back if you spend $10 million in Palantir, right? All that matters if you spend $30 million a year on Palantir's product, all that matters is you get a lot more than $30 million a year back. If you spend $3 million a year on Palantir's products, all that matters is saving you a lot more than $3 million a year or helping you generate more than $3 million a year, right? Because there was sometimes on those grill items where we didn't put enough product and we didn't take real-time data into account, right? And as a human, as a manager, I'm worried about a million different things. I can't be worried. And all of a sudden, customers over there looking like, hey, where's all the steak taquitos? Where's the hot dogs? They're not on the grill. So think about this in regards to a business, in regards to businesses. And, the larger the company, the more it matters, folks. Real-time data could be, is almost the holy grail, in my opinion.
Pilots that took 6 months to boot camps that take officially 2 days. I was in one that took 6 hours.
Okay, so this in itself is absolutely massive. This to me was one of the biggest moments of the Q&A section, no doubt. I mean, this is massive. Alex Karp right here talks about basically what he's explaining is sales cycle is the way I would put it, okay? And, used to be 6 months-ish to kind of get a customer to really understand Palantir's products and get them to use it and understand it and like it and those sorts of things. Versus now you can make tremendous progress in a 2-day boot camp. He talks about it. You went through one in 6 hours, right? And so we're talking about a customer being able to use Palantir, understand how Palantir is going to be able to help their business in a matter of days versus many, many months prior. That shortens the sales cycle considerably, and that makes you much more likely to get a whole lot more deals. And so this is a fundamental, monumental change in Palantir's business model. And I was like, if you want to know one of the many reasons why Palantir stock was up 20+% yesterday, another 4 or 5% today, that in itself, we call that a fundamental change in the business model for the better. Going from months of a sales cycle to potentially days, and customers saying, I get it. This is impactful. That's huge.
It's like we're like, there's a limit to how much resources we can pour into this. So we're like doing all these things, and we're educating people, and we're doing it at a scale that is equivalent to already 1 month is as much as we did all year last year.
Yeah, and with our relentless execution, we're seeing the ability and how much easier it is, lowering the barrier for customers to see our product applied against their data in real workflows. And so we're seeing the network effects of that. We're seeing customers who have used AIP in one context going to new companies, adopting it at new companies, and converting quickly. We're seeing customers that were with us years ago who are coming back to us because we have the product now that works for what they need. And we're seeing that in a way where they maybe tried to build themselves and failed, and they're now able to implement it effectively and quickly in that environment. And the vast kind of expansion and advancements of our products are showing that at our customers.
And one of the things that, I'm very bullish on the U.S. and quite frankly, a little bit less bullish on every place else. But one of the things that's amazing about the U.S. is people change jobs, and people know how good our products and the minute they change their job, they call us. And some of the results, so if you disambiguate and normalize the results to take out SPACs, U.S. is growing 52% off of a large base, which is why I think we can accelerate it to a $1 billion run rate by 25. But it's because
hold on.
And people know how good our products and the minute they change their job, they call us. And some of the results, so if you disambiguate and normalize the results to take out SPACs, U.S. is growing 52% off of a large base, which is why I think we can accelerate it to a $1 billion run rate by 25. But it's because
it's a big number.
The dynamic, how dynamic America is, and people moving around taking the product, combined with our ability to execute in a new commercial motion that is just literally.
What did I freaking call out? I told you guys, one of the great things with Palantir is because its product's so good that if, especially an executive moves to another company, they're gonna probably look at whatever they have and whatever they're using and say, why do we not have Palantir? We need to get Palantir in regards to our company, right? That's the great effect of having a truly great product in the market, and that's what we're going to see play out for the next 10 plus years for Palantir. Is executives change roles, they change companies, and they come into a new company, and you're going to deal with whatever you got to deal with. If you already dealt with Palantir, and you're like, dude, can we please get Palantir in here? This is ridiculous. We got a way inferior product. And the other executives wake up and say, oh gosh, so this Palantir stuff's for real, right? Now, what does all this mean for 2024 numbers, right? I think we're going to see a very, very nice acceleration of growth in 2024 versus what we've been putting up in 2023, right? Which, respectable growth rates in 2023. I just think we're moving to a next level in 2024 because all these things, all these components are all coming together at the same time. Big government deals all being closed right now over the past month or two, plus over the next couple months here. On top of that, this commercial side, the boot camps, going from 6 months to try to convert a customer to potentially days to convert a customer and get them to say, oh gosh, this is impactful to my business. We're going to start to see all this play out in 2024, in my opinion. And so we'll see a very sweet acceleration of not only profitability for the company in 2024, but ultimately a very sweet acceleration of revenue growth for the company, which is going to delight, I think, a lot of shareholders overall.
A game changer for how we go to market. And by the way, we always kind of neglect to mention this. It's also a game changer internally. culturally right now, partly because we're on the front line fighting what amounts to evil, partly because a lot of people don't agree with us, and those that do realize that they need to stand up and stand with us, and partly because we were right about what you should supply to U.S. commercial. It's just a really good vibe internally. It's like we're really, it's really fun to crush it. And quite frankly, it's occasionally fun to watch your, apparently perfect fake competitors deliver things that don't work, and to watch us walk in with our crazy show and deliver things that do.
Thank you. Our next question is from Samit, who asks, does Palantir view the USG hardware primes as allies or competitors?
We view the primes as allies, and government, Palantir government web
Yeah,
services.
you're not going to really hear any other CEOs ever speak like that, right? Which definitely rubs some people the wrong way. I mean, some people love it, Cocky Karp. Maybe that's his new nickname, Cocky Karp. You either got to love it or hate it. There's no one else I can tell you that I hold of a stock that comes across as cocky other than Karp, right? He's just got a different view. He's got a lot of built up frustration with Silicon Valley, with the way those companies operate. He has a lot of built up hatred, and he doesn't mind people knowing that he has a lot of true built up hatred of what Silicon Valley is, what it represents, in that whole space. He's very clear about that, right? And so as a shareholder of the company, you kind of have to ask yourself, do I feel comfortable, investing my money with a company which their CEO's really cocky and, pretty arrogant, and he's got a lot of built up hatred for a lot of folks. And the one thing I'll say about this, okay, is it's all fine as long as you've really got it like that. As long as you really got the product, you can be as cocky as you want. It's no different than sports, right? Sports, as long as you're winning, Mayweather was fine. He was always very arrogant and cocky as a boxer because he always won, right? And so as long as you're always winning, it's fine. If you stop winning or you don't really have it like that, that's when the downfall is really vicious because there's a lot of people waiting to poke at you, right? So I think that's just a little food for thought there. I accept Karp for what he is, which is somebody that's extremely confident and borderline cocky and arrogant, and it's fine with me. I don't get offended by it. Coming from the sports world, it is what it is.
It enables this. So 2 of the primes are customers of Apollo. 2 of the primes are using Foundry to improve internal production.
Oh, and lastly, believe me, I'm telling you guys, a lot of these CEOs and executives are extremely cocky and arrogant behind closed doors. Extremely cocky and arrogant behind closed doors. They won't admit it, on video like Karp does and open it up to the world. But believe me, you speak to them behind closed doors, they're extremely arrogant and cocky because of what they have achieved, what their companies are doing, and things like that. They're just very good at hiding it in the public. Karp's not.
Integration. Another prime, Northrop, has joined our Titan team. And I think from our perspective, America needs her primes. Like, our national security depends on them. There's a lot of talk in defense tech circles about disrupting the primes. And I think there's incredible opportunity to transform what's possible with software, which, in my opinion, we're leading. But fundamentally, they're crucial to our national security. And that's because production does matter. You have to bend metal at the end of the day. And using 10 years of munitions in 10 weeks in Ukraine really underscores that point. But increasingly, production is itself software-defined and optimized. In fact, that's most of our commercial business, helping Airbus with the A350 and single-aisle ramp-up, helping BP produce more hydrocarbons, helping Panasonic build more batteries for Tesla cars. Like, that sort of transformation and efficiency is what we want to bring to the primes as well as they bend metal.
Maybe what Shyam has done a really magnificent job of is, it's fair to say the primes thought we were competitive with them until recently, and not just primes but others, but because really to get access to the kinds of data that the Pentagon has, you're going to need either Palantir or be able to build something like Palantir. And I think, in all modesty, people have realized it's pretty damn hard to do what we've done. And so there was this kind of perceived misalignment, and what Shyam has been building out with FedRAMP is giving people a way to partner with us where they can extend what they're doing without having to try, which everybody still does, but is commonly known will not work, the ability to have access to the underlying data for reasons that are highly technical. It's crazy hard to do. And so getting that full alignment is both much better for Palantir and much better for the nation. And then we're, of course, interested in it because we're pretty mission focused and we want the nation to function better. And we're also realistic. It's not good for us to be fighting battles. We know we're much better at software. We have no interest in going into hardware. I think increasingly they know they should not fight us on software, although some still do, which is largely stupid.
Thank you both. Our next question is from Mariana with Bank of America. Mariana, please turn on your camera and then you'll receive a prompt to unmute your line.
Well, here we go. Analyst, live question.
Good morning, everyone. So I have two questions for you.
There she is.
Number one is on the government side. All these geopolitical events, we have seen all these countries moving really fast to actually enhance readiness, and modernization is a key asset. What is your expectation for the U.S. actually moving at the need of speed, or like speed of the need, under a more bureaucratic, usually more bureaucratic environment? And the other one is AIP.
By the way, if you're wondering, is this normal? No. Okay. I've never seen it, and I literally have been investing for 15 years. I've never seen a company where they have the analysts put on cameras to ask their questions. But it just goes to show, Karp and the team, they think different about these different things. And so it's just fascinating that they get these analysts to actually put on a camera, because usually they just call in, ask their questions. Sometimes they can be a little snobby, I would put it, in terms of these analysts in regards to the way they ask their questions. But, to have the whole camera hookup and everything just cracks me up.
You have discussed already how it changed, or it was a catalyst for customers to be able to adopt data analytics and data infrastructure. But I'm interested to understand, beyond boot camps, what else is changing internally, how you face customers, how you do things with AIP, and how that is impacting your margins, because they look like 30% operating margins now versus a 25 that you were printing before.
Maybe to start with the second one here with AIP, I think you should really think that, the boot camp is more than just what's happening in the boot camp, because you're exiting the boot camp with a series of use cases that are production ready or near production ready that you can go forward with. You're exiting the boot camp with, as the customer, and usually IT, with enough hands-on experience with the product that you can actually keep going and compounding it going forward. So there's this exit velocity that's fundamental to it, where it's not just the go-to-market motion. It actually now becomes the implementation motion. It becomes the way in which you engage with partners, because now partners can run their boot camps. Partners can drive use case growth for themselves around what came out of the boot camp and the exit velocity around that. So I think it's quite profound, and why you're seeing both our emphasis of it and the impact that it's having on both the financials and the operating reality of the business.
Yeah, as we mentioned on the last earnings calls, we were focused on usage and value of AIP, and we're seeing that. By the end of November, 140 organizations will have delivered boot camps to, and we're seeing that and then the conversions that flow from that as well.
And to put that number in perspective, I think roughly 70 of those boot camps will happen this month in November, which is more than the number of commercial pilots we did all of last year.
Whoa. Okay. You want another big flip and flapjacking number? That's a big number, right? Man just says we're going to do 70-ish boot camps likely in November, right? Which is bigger than all the pilots we did last year. What? That's why I say we're having a fundamental change in Palantir's business model going on right now. And it's very important everybody is aware of this. And so if you want to know why this stock has shot up billions and billions of dollars in market cap in the past couple days, I can tell you it's not retail investors pushing this stock up. It is Wall Street money realizing that, there's an actual big fundamental change that's going on with Palantir's business model that's going to produce some incredible results in 2024 and beyond. Wow.
The velocity
and we're just starting. So we're ramping up to doing them. Yeah.
And then I guess on the margin side, what you're seeing is we are investing, pretty significantly. R&D is up sequentially.
And you know what else just hit me is if they get this boot camp model down, and it's something that can be done in a day or a couple days, right? I was just thinking, why couldn't we over time be able to expand this to maybe at least mid-sized businesses and maybe even smaller businesses, right? Not like super small businesses, like let's call it under 200K revenue type businesses, but smaller businesses, and consider like the, few $1,000,000 a year type businesses. Like maybe we can even go downstream over time, which opens up a huge other opportunity, because really people only view Palantir as like government and like the largest enterprises. If we can start going beneath that surface, I think that could be huge as well, right? Absolutely massive for the company. So, yeah, I mean, it used to not be, if you had to have a 6-month pilot and it had to be this long customer experience, it didn't make sense for Palantir to go after a customer where they might only make, $500,000 a year off that customer, or $250,000 a year or something like that, right? If you cut down that cycle from months and months to maybe a couple days, now it's pretty intriguing. So, that opens up a whole other can of worms for Palantir long term on what they could be able to accomplish in the type of margins the company could, in the type of operating income this company could end up producing long term.
11%.
But I think the thing that is confusing is our go-to-motion now in US comm is so efficient. So you could basically look at it as 10x more efficient, and we are ramping it up. But this is the most efficient way for us to go to market. So it's like it's not constrained by dollars. It's constrained by, do we have people that actually know the product? Have we trained them? There's not a way in which we can efficiently, because if you're growing a business 52%, the obvious thing is you should be dumping money on it like a bonfire, especially if it's the only market that actually really matters in the world. And by the way, if you're recalibrating the standard, one of the things we did with PG, we did with Gaia, we did with Meta Constellation, it's not just that we win clients. It's that we set a standard that the competition can never meet. And that this is really important for our go-to-market strategy. It's like you can pretend you're going to build PG. The French government announces they're going to rebuild it for $40 million. You can't rebuild PG for $40 million. You can't rebuild it for $1 billion. You need us. You can't rebuild Foundry. You can't rebuild. When we go to market with AIP, the clients are learning two things. They're learning, I could use this. They're learning how to use it. They're also now going to go to every other vendor and say, but I want my thing to provide operational results. And Palantir has done this in 6 hours. I like you better. I'll give you 6 days. I prefer you. Your steak dinner is better. Your suit is better. Your backing from the analyst is better. You don't have the madman sticking up for things that are good and right in the world, despite them being unpopular. And you get all that. I'll give you an extra 10 days. Well, try that with PG. It's ridiculous. Try it with Foundry. It's ridiculous. Try it with Meta Constellation. No one even bothers trying that. No one tries this on Gaia. And they're not going to try it on AIP either. And that's one of the most important things we do as a company. Because in the end, it is actually very attached to our mission.
Wait, before he goes further here, I got to comment on this because that's huge. Basically, he says you can't compete with us. You can't build what we got here. Right now, some people might have a different opinion, say, no, you could build that. Well, why don't they? Right? Like, why don't they? If you can just build that, I think it's always like, everybody always thinks like, I could just do whatever this company's doing. And then they find out it's a lot harder to actually reach scale, to actually pull it off, to actually have this sort of product this other company has. This sometimes takes years to develop, and sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of dollars to develop that product, right? French government thinking they can do something for $40 million and build like that. That is pretty laughable, I will say. Yeah.
What we should do is build products that are so good
government can't do anything
that the competition stops competing, whether that's in commercial or on the battlefield. And that's what we're doing. And that's what we're seeing in AIP. And I haven't seen.
And so why can't somebody just build what Palantir's got, right? Well, how's all this stuff get built? Ultimately, it gets built by humans, right? Who's got one of the best workforces in the world? Palantir, right? Do you think the best worker is going to go work for the French government to build? No, of course not. They're not going to pay enough. The government doesn't pay enough. You know who does? Big tech companies. They got the money. So all the best employees, all the highest caliber employees are always going to work for the best tech companies and try to get into Palantir. From what I've heard from folks countless times, is Palantir is about the hardest company to get into you can possibly imagine. Like you can get a job at companies like Google or Meta or some of those companies easier And those companies aren't even the easiest to get into, but you can get jobs at those companies easier than you can get in at somewhere like Palantir. So, it's the employee force. It's the humans that are working on these things, thinking about these things, how to construct them, how to actually pull it off, right? That is ultimately the game changer in the end.
Distance PG, which is our
And you
first.
just can't duplicate that because other companies aren't going to have those same employees, and other companies aren't going to have the same managers or the same executives. You're not going to be able to attract the sort of talent to pull it off because you're probably not going to have enough money. The reason Palantir's done so much damn stock-based compensation, over time, it's not just, let's just give employees a bunch of shares over time, a bunch of stock-based compensation. It's because they attract top-tier talent. Guess what top-tier talent wants? They want a big fat salary. On top of that big fat salary, they want bonuses. On top of bonuses, they want stock. They say, if I'm going to build this company into a big beast, I want to make some of the profits in the end as well, right? That's where stock-based compensation comes in. It's not just, let's just give a bunch of shares away, dilute shareholder value to do it. No.
Terror product. No one bothers even, currently PG is blocked in Germany. That's because somebody doesn't, whatever. It's just they're waiting for a terror attack so the AfD can win. It's like insane. So any case, no one's bothered saying we should build another PG. You can't build it. So you can just opt to not have the product. There'll be people who do that. And that's the aspiration for every single one of our products. And that's what I see in AIP.
Thank you all. Alex, is there anything you'd like to say before we end today's call?
As usual, it's a wild ride if you're an investor or if you're an employee internally. There's this term mission-driven culture, which I increasingly don't like because almost everyone's saying it. It's just waiting to get attendees, then drop their mission and be a sophist. But in fact, we are believers, we are fighters, and we are a mission-driven culture. And we welcome everybody who wants to participate that as an investor or as a Palantirian or as someone who follows us.
Thank you. That concludes Q&A for today's call.
And one last thing I like about, Karp's approach, you call it cocky, you can call it arrogant, right? You could also call it extremely confident. And, he says, we're the best. We got the best product. Not even close. We have by far the best product, right? And, it's important that he comes across with that sort of level of confidence when he's in the room with, other very important individuals that are going to potentially do a $15 million, $30 million, $70 million, $100 million deal with Palantir, right? He's got to have that level of confidence about, you go with anybody but us, you are going to end up with a very inferior product that you will end up long-term regretting and will end up costing you a lot more money than whatever you spend with us. And so I appreciate that approach in the end, okay? All right, guys, that was a big one. Appreciate y'all joining me as always. Thanks so much for being here. Thank you for being subscribed. New all-time high subscribers in the history of the channel. Appreciate each and every one of you. If you want to see what stocks I was buying and selling here today, join my Patreon. You can see exactly how I build out a portfolio, the buys and sells, all that good stuff, plus be part of the Discord chat. And then this tier has a Become Master Stock Market course, my #1 course ever, attached to it as well. That will be pinned comment down there. Much love. Congrats to all Palantir Bulls, and have a great day.